Hi there, and welcome to the first episode of Previously Prohibited. I'm Jenin and my co-host is Melissa Whitty. We met on Twitter over our sort of dissident views on a variety of subjects from COVID-19 to the Israel-Palestine conflict. And we thought that we would start a podcast to discuss some of our views that tend to not be aired by the mainstream establishment. And we both do our research and put in the work. So I think we have a lot to offer. And one of the subjects that's a rather interesting topic of conversation today is the drones that have been sighted over New Jersey. I don't think there's any question that there have been a lot of drones over New Jersey in the last week or so. And where they're coming from is the big question. So, Melissa, where are they coming from? Another planet?
Yeah, it's a first encounter or it's the Iranians. Flip a coin. No, so it is interesting because it's been going on for like a month. I haven't paid. I hate aliens. I hate aliens.
Oh, it's been going on for a month. I thought it was only like a week. I hadn't heard of it.
No. I have let me see if I can pull up the history. It's been going on for a little while now. And yeah, okay. So look, the Picatinny Arsenal, which is located on the Picatinny military base. It was just kind of like in the middle of the state-ish. The first confirmed sighting was November 13th. So
oh wow, okay. Yeah.
And they have, let's see, looks like about 15 confirmed sightings of these big drones, like massive drones. When I first heard about it, I'm like thinking, hobby drone flying around, who cares, whatever. And then there was that, did you see where that guy down in Georgia or Florida, one of the two, shot the Amazon delivery drone out of his yard?
Oh, I didn't.
It's so funny to me that he just like pulled out the shotgun and literally just took the whole thing out. And
oh wow.
So that's what I was kind of thinking when it first kind of came on.
Right.
And then, but here, like the last couple of days, what really kind of woke me up was this congressman. For everybody that doesn't know, the congressman from New Jersey's 2nd district, Jeff Van Drews. He goes on Fox News on Wednesday, and he says that he has talked to someone that he sits on the transportation committee, and he has talked to people high up in the know who he trusts, who are trustworthy, and they say that the Iranians have parked a mothership off of our coast and are launching these drones at Jersey.
And for regular people who don't necessarily, aren't as aware of the sort of dynamics going on around Iran, there's a lot of interest, let's say, from certain portions of the American public and other countries in getting us to go to war with Iran, which would be disastrous for the American people financially and otherwise. So, and for a sitting congressman to say this has a rather large impact. I mean, this was going pretty viral, I think. I had a lot of people I knew texting me like, oh my God, is Iran about to attack us?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was like instantaneous. It just took off like wildfire, which again, I think because I've just been around the military a bunch, like immediately I'm like, number one, that would be number one, if a Iranian ship ever even got within, I think, 1,000 miles of the American coast, we would never hear anything else. It would just be 24/7,
right,
wall-to-wall coverage.
Right.
We would be blowing it up. We would be invading. Like, there's just no question about it.
They only have one ship, right? The mothership that could do this, and it was
right, so
to be in a different location.
A little bit of truth to what he said. He said that they deployed it a month ago, and what happened was they actually did outfit one of their ships into like a drone ship, right? I don't even know what that entails, but they set it up so that it could serve as like this mothership where, you know, the drones could come and go. And they, so it was spotted in a harbor in the Gulf in November 12th was the last satellite image. And then it had moved from that port. And on November 28th, there was another satellite image of it. And it was in the Strait of Hormuz, like at one of their harbors and whatnot. So again, it does exist, and they did move it about a month ago, but no, like I was
to a totally different place than the east coast of the United States.
Yeah, to still within their territory, which is right. So crazy. And I was telling Jenin earlier that the Iranians have, to our knowledge, have only ever been in the Atlantic Ocean one time, June 2021, and they were going to Venezuela, which is really weird though. If you look it up to see if they actually docked, I couldn't actually confirm whether or not they had docked, but that was kind of the speculation that they were headed to Venezuela. But they're still like way down in South America, Atlantic Ocean territory, not even anywhere near us. So the idea that they just, you know, deployed this ship and then what do you know, a month later, they just pop up out of nowhere right off the coast, start launching drones, is just ridiculous. And plus, we already know that the drones were sighted when the ship was still in its port, like in its in its shipyard. Excuse me. So he's just an idiot.
Right, right. I thought it was funny that Elon Musk, as we mentioned earlier, made fun of the idea that it was Iran. He did like a tweet meme, sort of mocking the idea. And that's been surprising to me because Musk has been very much towing the Israel line on basically every subject. And for those viewers who aren't familiar, it's, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, is really desperate to draw us into a war with Iran, and has been for some time. And I think there's some reasonable speculation that Van Drew's sort of baseless accusation was driven perhaps by that incentive.
Yeah. I think he's you know, he's like a Republicans in general aren't, I don't want to say they're not that big of recipients of APAC money, but like house-wise, they're cheap dates. They don't have to get paid nearly as much as the Democrats. Everybody gets bought, but their price is pretty significantly lower. But
but they all have a handler, right? As Thomas.
Oh yeah, they all have a handler. Van Drew's is actually interesting because he used to be a Democrat, and then in 2019 he switched parties.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Right, and he's just kind of a boob, but he so he's speculating about that, and the Pentagon immediately came out and was like, we have no idea what he's talking about.
Right.
No mothership off of the coast. This is not a thing. Okay, like calm down. I had like little MAGA grandmas, so sweet, writing me DMs, worried. I was so annoyed. I was so angry at that congressman. You know, world. Why would you do that?
It's extremely irresponsible. I mean, it gets people extremely scared. And there's been, given that there's sort of been this drumbeat for war with Iran, which would be, in my opinion, very detrimental to the American people as well as the Iranian people.
I mean, Iran is, again, not even, I think sometimes Americans get a little emboldened because they've watched, you watch people like Assad fall in Syria, right? Or, Lebanon, obviously Hamas. And I think we really lose touch with reality about the idea of actually fighting, like even a semi-peer military, not even, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call Iran like a peer military by any means, but it's not just some, ragtag militia. It's not like a resistance group. It's like a legit nation with a leader, a slight form of democracy that, they do have some say in the leadership per se, at least in the government. And then, so it's not like, Saddam and dictatorship, them falling over, or even like Assad and whatnot. And they are like, I mean, they have decent funding, and the country has legitimate resources to bargain with. I just think that sometimes we are really, when I say bargain with, I mean to keep itself afloat, like the way Russia has
Right.
been. Yeah.
Right.
And
Why do you
so,
think Netanyahu is so desperate to get us into war with Iran? What's his motive?
because he sees them as the ultimate, as a threat to his power.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably going to tick a lot of people off, but I think it's pretty clear that he
Isn't
has
that what we're supposed to do?
definitely tamed the beasts. There is no other opposition in the region to him whatsoever.
Yeah.
The Gulf states have pretty much just rolled over like kittens for him. They're all Iran is left, the only thing left. And
Right.
then
And it's pretty obvious that his intention is to expand the borders of Israel as much as possible. I mean, that's why they're attacking Syria right now. That's why they're trying to expand into Lebanon and northern Gaza.
yeah. I mean, people talk about the Greater Israel Project. I thought it was interesting. There's a woman, Daniela Weiss. Do you know who I'm talking
Oh,
about?
yeah, I know. The one who does the settlement auctions or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And early on, after October 7th, she gave an interview with the New Yorker. And I actually kind of appreciate her in a way because she doesn't fluff. She's
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hesitate to call her honest because I think that she'd lie in a heartbeat if it benefits her.
Yeah.
I just think she doesn't care what you think of her. So she's not afraid to say what she's thinking,
Right.
And she's truly not really interested in your approval whatsoever. So she has no problem laying it out there. And she was really honest about wanting the the land that was promised to them in Numbers 34, which is from the Euphrates all the way down to Sinai, which is through the middle of
from the river to the sea.
Yeah. It's a totally different river.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she laid that out early on. I think it was a New Yorker article. It was like end of October and she talked about that this is our chance. This is our opportunity right now.
Like you mean October 7th after October 7th,
right? It was, in fact, she was saying it's not just about Gaza. It's about taking what's ours. And it's interesting the way that a lot of the stuff that has happened, especially with Hezbollah falling the way that it did, I hesitate to say that I think that Israel had a heads up on 10/7, and I think that I don't think that they cooperated in any way, but I do think that they let it happen because it was politically convenient for a lot of things, a lot of reasons, and with all Netanyahu's troubles, legal troubles, corruption trials, and everything like that, that I wouldn't be surprised at all if we know that they had a heads up. We know that
they definitely had a heads up.
Right. We know that the Egyptians, but it's not just that. When you really start to look into it, it's fascinating. They pretty much received a hard copy of the plan of Hamas's plan. Something like, I think it was like January of 2023. They actually passed it around to all of their security units, and they even had a name for it. A special name for it, but they said it was too ambitious for Hamas.
Right. Well, that's one of the theories, is that they knew about it, but they get this kind of intel all the time, and so they didn't necessarily take it that seriously, or they didn't know what date it would be. So I would say, for me, the jury's out on how much they knew. They certainly were given a warning. I don't think that's disputed by anybody.
Right. Yeah. No, they were definitely given a warning, but I genuinely do actually think that they knew it wasn't just a little bit. I have a long thread that I've written on it, and I went through and I had all of the dates pulled out and everything, but you can find it. Israeli media is actually refreshingly more upfront about so much.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's crazy.
American media is just crap. Okay. It is just filtered crap.
Yes.
No, I mean, the Israelis, I mean, and God bless them, because they actually are pretty fearless in putting this stuff out, stuff that just would never in a million years see the light of day in America. And
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, our media is completely overtaken by, you know,
yeah,
people
isn't
whose
it?
interests are,
Yeah,
yes. It's
you know, it's so bizarre. And and so,
Well,
but
that's one of the reasons we're doing this podcast, right? I mean, the media has become the point of journalists in the media, and that's why they're protected in the First Amendment, is that they're supposed to provide like a check on the government. And instead, the media in our country has just become sort of an arm of the government and just doing their bidding. Mostly, I mean, honestly, mostly for the Democrats, but you have like Fox News, which I would say acts more in service to the Republicans, but they're not questioning any of it. And that is supposed to be the media's job. Rather, they've just been in cahoots with them. And I mean, that's why we learn about things months later, like the Biden administration covered up evidence that Israel was trying to stop aid from getting into Gaza. This kind of stuff is what the media should be reporting on.
right, it's absolutely, I mean, it's bizarre and then a little scary in a way too, I think, because everything is just, it's so heavily filtered, it's so centered around the power structures, around reinforcing the power structures
Yeah,
already in place, that and we saw it, I mean, especially with COVID, we saw it.
100%.
If you
100% of,
We
yeah.
saw it with COVID. We saw it with the vaccine. Even if you don't even just buy, like, say you don't buy into like the dangers of the vaccine, just the efficacy of the vaccine.
Right.
It was plain as day. It was published by the distributors, with their clinical trial summaries. We didn't test this on asymptomatic infections.
Right.
We didn't test this on transmission. And yet our government came out, bold-faced lied, said it stopped both, and then it took a year, and it was just so maddening, because it was like, okay, but you would see this, but then the actual like the Pfizer clinical trial summary, quite literally in the corner at the bottom, and this was published in December 2020, said that we didn't test any of this stuff.
I know. I was so maddened because I was lucky enough to be friends with Jay Bhattacharya and Martin Kulldorff. I still am. But I had asked them in early 2021, like in January, and like, should I get this vaccine? And they were like, no, like not for your age group. It doesn't stop transmission, hasn't been tested for that. And frankly, like you can't know the long-term side effects of something that hasn't been around long term. And like Martin Kulldorff is one of the top vaccine safety specialists in the entire world. And then I heard like government people, media just parrot this bullshit about how it's safe and effective. And I was like, wait a second, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. And nobody would like listen to them. It was so infuriating. And I mean, COVID, even before that, COVID had opened my eyes, because I also, like very early on, I was just like, wait a second, we're going to do these unprecedented lockdowns without even thinking about it, without even a real policy discussion, without a public debate. Like, are you crazy? Do you not realize the economic and psychological implications of doing this to a country?
Oh, yeah, well,
that
we saw it play out. We saw the psychological consequences play out
yeah.
in the riots.
Yeah.
People that got ascribed to all kinds of things, but at the end of the day, you'll never convince me that wasn't honestly just a result of locking people in their homes for 8 weeks.
Of course it was. I remember. So I was living in New York City at the time. I remember when it happened, and all my friends were like, "What was this, May or something?" They were like, "We're going to go to a protest," and I was like, "What? You guys have been talking about how we can't leave our apartments for the last 2 months, and now we're going to go to a protest with massive numbers of people?" And they weren't like, my friends weren't people who thought it was okay to hang out with people outdoors. They wouldn't do that either. And they're like, well, no, wait, this is a public health thing because it's Black people's lives. And I'm like, okay, help me. I don't get the logic here.
I know. Well, for me, I was like, I don't actually care, because maybe this is going to snap everyone out of it.
Yes, I thought that too.
Yeah.
But no, the media was very effective at convincing people like there's this exception for if a Black person is killed by police, then COVID stops. But otherwise, COVID spreads.
The only thing that can stop COVID is protest racism.
Yes.
It actually was the vaccine all along. We just didn't know. It's So yeah, so it was just like this maddening capture, right? And then
Yes.
we see the way that the media is just, it was just worthless, and even the quote unquote dissident media was worthless. But then
Yes.
what we also saw was that, so there's this massive hole, right? That people are hungry, they know they're being lied to, they know they're being fed bullshit, but nobody's stepping up. And so you have the crazies come out from the other side,
Right.
and
Right.
they fill the void. And then everything is just so much, because they're saying some truth, but then you have to weed through
Right.
every little thing they say because, yeah, you know.
So, back to the drone issue. What is your theory about what's going on?
I think it's the government. I think it's well, I don't think it's the Pentagon itself. I think it's a contractor of some sort. You've got Palantir. They just teamed up with it's Palmer Lucky's company. I can't remember the name of it. It's another one from like Lord of the Rings or something. And but they make drones. They're, military drones. So I think it's some kind of program like that. I don't think it's being ran by the government, but I do think they know exactly who is running it. And I think they're probably testing their technology on tracking, like using the drones for facial recognition. And they're probably, and that's why they're deploying them in residential areas. I did see something the other day that I thought was really kind of outrageous, or not the other day, but 2 days ago, that I read a news story today. About 2 days ago in Jersey, a medevac was going to pick up a patient at a hospital, and it had to get canceled because there were drones hovering
Wow.
in the landing spot.
Wow.
Which
That's
is like,
weird.
that's outrageous, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, at
Yeah.
some point, this needs to get shut down. So they're
Yeah.
clearly control, and why they're being allowed to do this, to me, the only explanation is that the Pentagon at least knows who it is,
Or it's aliens. That's the other.
right. Or if they're,
Aliens that obey FAA regulations.
Exactly.
To be doing that.
If you wanted to blend in, you could. And I mean, apparently they're all over the world now. That's what somebody was saying earlier. I guess on TikTok. TikTok is really like taking off with it. And with the aliens, I don't know. I mean, my sister called me today. She said she was stocking up on rice and water. Because it could be for counter. Like, I can't.
I doubt it. I feel like the alien drones or ships would look really different from ours, but these look exactly like, or very similar to ours. It seems unlikely that they would be using the same model.
Right. And I hate space and aliens. I hate talking about aliens. I hate talking about space in general. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I, routinely, launch cannons at space Twitter because I hate them all. And I like to pick fights with them because I think that they are unhinged and they're crazy. They're crazy. I made the mistake of saying that going to Mars was stupid. And
oh yeah, I remember that.
Oh my goodness. I was getting messages in my like, how you have the DM. So you have like a regular DM folder that's like people that you follow. And then you have like a, hey, this person follows you, you might know them. And then you have you have like the back DM folder.
Yeah.
Do you have your DMs open?
Yeah.
So, and that one's usually just like, like the Chinese porn bots or whatnot.
Yeah. I get a lot of those.
But when somebody gets really ugly, or they like a lot, like that's where their messages get sent. And I was like a week later, and I was still getting angry messages, like calling me like the worst things ever from the space nerds.
It's really weird, the things that people get the most worked up about. I think I've done some tweets that I thought were like not very, I can't think of any examples right now. And people were so angry. And I'm like, really? This is the thing I get?
Oh, I know. I'm like, so the space nerds are my mortal enemies, pretty much.
Okay. My husband is very into this space stuff. So if you ever meet him, I'll tell him to tamp down on it. I know.
It's so funny because I mean, it's a lonely road that I walk hating. Trust me, it's not a popular position. But
So, final words on the drones?
um, so the FBI's and been in the hot seat. Oh, final.
Yeah.
So right before we came
Yeah.
on, Ian Carroll, if you are into X or TikTok, he's really great podcaster guy. He pulled up or he posted something from Reddit earlier, and this guy claims, of course we don't know if this is true or not, but he claims he's a 25-year radar operator for a major agency, and he says, I just thought I'd let you know what's been going on these past few weeks. The drones are part of a military drill being conducted by Space Force. So everything is in a need to know basis. That's why there's so much confusion. He says that they're getting ready for a full lockout drill scheduled to take place between now and Christmas. And they're going to that's where these operations involve the turnover of all radio and radar aircraft communications to the military for several hours. This is in conjunction with scheduled satellite launches, off the books things. So I don't know. Of course, I went and looked up, where they have Space Force bases and whatnot. Obviously, they could, fly the drones from anywhere, but there's not that many. It's really kind of hubbed in Colorado, so that would be a weird space for them.
Interesting. Yeah.
S to me is Jersey. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, but again, I do think it's something the government knows,
Yeah.
And so they just don't want to say, but it's not the Iranians. That is, I would,
and I'm pretty sure it's not aliens either.
Yeah, I would put money on it being aliens over the Iranians, though. 100%.
Yeah.
It is not the Iranians. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that's about it on that. Yeah.